Show, what a difference a year makes. Last year, America celebrated a summer of love, and this year could not have been a bigger contrast. Time to coincide with the Lunar New Year, the North Vietnamese government and Communist Viet Cong forces launched a coordinated attack on targets in the south, demonstrating they are nowhere near collapse as we have been told. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in April, followed by Robert F. Kennedy in June, while unrest sweeps across the nation's college campuses. Molly, we'll begin with you. While it's hard to understand now, only a few months after, how do we comprehend the impact of the assassinations of both Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy?
Well, if we think of 1967 as the summer of love, when all things seemed possible, and there were a lot of breaking down of the social mores, I wrote about it a lot. Many people having sex, that marijuana is very popular, although illegal. If the last year was the summer of love, this is the winter of our discontent. There is no question that everyone has lost faith in Washington, D.C., and the word coming out of Washington, D.C., clearly this is not a war that we are winning. I started my career during World War II when our goal was very clear. It was easier to give advice to the boys going off to war because you knew what they were fighting for and you knew what the people at home stood for. Now, what does our government stand for? They stand for oppression. They do not stand for free speech. Al, I'm sure, can speak to this too, but the number of stories we have to cover in our newsroom, the unrest is incredible. And then to add to that, the unbelievable disillusionment and sadness, no matter how you felt about Robert Kennedy's candidacy, you could not help but be appalled that this had happened to a brother of JFK. And what happened with Martin Luther King after what he had done to change the face of this country and the world is a sad, sad, dark time for us.
Gerald, I'm sure as a community organizer, the war, the assassinations, the entire tenor of 1968 has made a great impact on what you do. Tell us the impact of all these major events of this year, 1968.
Well, this summer of love in San Francisco with the hippies and their ridiculous music, that was fine for them. But let's remember that we've had major race riots in almost every big American city in this country, starting in '65 and continuing this summer as well. In fact, Denver's been one of the very few cities of its size that's been spared of that, and that's partly because Denver, unlike other cities, has been successfully integrating. The Tet Offensive by the communists against South Vietnam was a military disaster for them. It wiped out the Viet Cong as a fighting force and really set them back on the battlefield ultimately. But at the peak of that surprise attack, they captured Hue, the northern capital in the olden days of southern Vietnam, got troops even up into the U.S. Embassy compound, and so it really amplified President Johnson's problem of a credibility gap, as they call it, because he'd been saying the war is going great, we're winning, and even if we are winning in the long run, it sure didn't feel like that at the time. And so I think that's one of the reasons, unfortunately, that the people decided they wanted to make a change. Nixon says he's got a secret plan to end the war in Vietnam. Who knows what that is, but the people wanted to try something different.
Al, I guess my question to you is now with these developments we've seen with the conflict in Vietnam and the reports from the government, do you believe that the public is going to begin to doubt what we're hearing from the government, and should they? You as a reporter are right in the front lines of that.
Oh, you're right. You're absolutely right, Hugh. The public is very, very uncertain about what to believe these days. You got people throwing around alternate facts right and left. You don't know what to believe. You can believe the Rocky Mountain News, though. I'll tell you that because I spend the time in the field talking to these folks, and I'll tell you what Mr. Copel says is very accurate. After the summer of love and all the good feeling, a lot of the younger generation now is just highly disillusioned, and they're tuning out. They're tuning out from civic involvement, tuning out from a whole lot of things, and they're just enjoying this what they call it, ganja, and I fear for the next generation. I really do. But that's why I'm spending this time, the next 3 months, undercover with that movement. I'm going to find out what's going on.
Well, Florence, speaking of the next generation, how does the civil rights movement pick up the pieces after a year like 1968?
Well, first of all, I want to tell Brother Al here that it's ganja.
Oh, okay.
Okay? All right. And Well, I have to just take issue with this characterization of 1967 as the Summer of Love. While Al's friends were smoking ganja in Haight-Ashbury and other places, there were more than 159 riots, race riots in America, from Boston to Detroit, Cincinnati. And so it's not the Summer of Love for everyone. It's not the Summer of Love for everyone. And with the assassination of Martin Luther King, it's a tragic story. It's a tragic story. Martin Luther King and the nonviolent civil rights movement had done so much, but there was increasing tension between the younger generation and Martin Luther King. We have black Afro-American men and women who do not want to turn the other cheek, who do not want to turn the cheek. And certainly, although they had disagreements with Dr. King after his brutal murder, are not willing to turn the other cheek. And so black power will be supplanting turn the other cheek. And as for Vietnam, I just have to say, my goodness, the Vietnamese people have been fighting for 40 or 50 years. They've been fighting the Japanese, they've been fighting the French. Japanese didn't win, the French didn't win. This war can't be won. Walter Cronkite said it himself. This war cannot be run. And we are using American men as cannon fodder. Shame.